Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the debut record from Vexed, Culling Culture, out May 21st on Napalm Records. This album has 11 tracks, 38 minutes in length, and they are a UK metal band. Now, I use the term metal band really loosely because I don't think you can define these guys under one genre. So by saying metal band, it's more all-encompassing, and I'm not really doing a disservice to them, to their fans, and to the album. An album that's a debut record, but it doesn't sound like a debut record. They showed a lot of poise, a lot of maturity in how they built and how they constructed and how they delivered this record. Listening to the album, I felt like perhaps this is a band that has 4 or 5 albums under their belt. It's not the case. It really shows you that they don't create an album that has normally the rookie mistakes that you find either in the structure or in the soundscape or in the merger of those two elements. They really defined this album well, they executed nearly to perfection, and they put together one of the strongest debut releases of 2021. Yes, I've said it. This is going to be one of the strongest releases of 2021. But let me explain you why. You look at the structure of this record, you don't see the normal flaws on a debut record, which is perhaps an album that has quality of individual songs, but it's a little bit broken as far as the fluidity is concerned. Because normally debut albums, they've been constructed over a very long period of time, and that change in time between songs really creates a divide in styles and approaches and allows the album to not have this continuous motion from top all the way to the bottom. It's not the case here. The album does offer you different looks, different feels from song to song as far as the output is concerned, but there's still some of the same elements that permeate from one track to the next in order to keep things moving and in order to keep things a little bit together. The emotional baggage of the lyrical theme throughout this record is also one of those common denominators that really holds this record together, allowing it to have a little bit more diversity of sound, diversity of approach, and diversity of construction. So while there's some volatility in this record, there is enough that really holds it together and allows the album to be as linear as possible and still be super dynamic from track to track. Then you get into the soundscape. Like I said earlier, I don't think you can define this band by one single genre. There's too many influences. Death metal, gent, prog, there's just a lot of things coming to the table that really allow them to create songs that really pull you and push you in different directions. That's exactly what this record is all about. But one thing that stays consistent is the quality of execution and the quality of display of these songs. It doesn't matter if you're listening to the second song or you're listening to the last song on the album, the quality of approach stays the same. How crisp the sound is, how crisp everything comes together. You have different elements that you can really digest the individuality of those elements, but then you can also regroup them together and really experience the song in its fullest form. This is not something that you see every single day, specifically on a debut album. I feel like they nailed it, absolutely nailed it on this record across every single track, allowing the album, like I said, to give you different feels, different looks from a soundscape perspective, but the quality value of the songs stays untouched throughout the whole entire record. Now, under that soundscape, you have 2 pillars, the drums and the guitars. The drums really ground this record, and I felt like they were really needed to have a more focused role as far as the overall album goes. You don't want the drums to be as dynamic as the overall experience of the record is, because that would break up the album, it would break up the songs. So it doesn't matter where you move within this album, you're always going to find that more often than not, the drums are really grounding the overall experience. They're bringing some weight to the table. They're allowing them to be the foundation of the tracks, and then everything else gets built on top of it. And the sound that's coming out of the drums has a lot of life. It has a lot of spirit. It's very earthy. It really permeates. It becomes a little bit bigger and allows the songs not to be as driven, as direct, but perhaps to have a little bit more of bandwidth. On top of that, you have the guitars, the other pillar. The guitars are a little bit more diverse. This is where you're going to start to see the songs going in perhaps slightly different directions. They're all going towards the same finish point, but they're not necessarily taking the same path. And you're going to see that from track to track and also within the tracks themselves. But I love the overall guitar sound on this record. I love the execution, the solos, the melodies, the leads. Everything surrounding the guitars on this record are just outstanding. Just outstanding. I could see them pushing the envelope in future records more into a prog atmosphere. The tools are there. You saw peaks, you saw glimpses of that on this album. There's certain songs where you almost feel like that more prog influence is coming just around the corner. It not necessarily gets there, but you could feel it like the possibility is there. So there is so much more to be done as far as the guitars are concerned, but this was an incredible appetizer. If you're a friend of guitar playing and great guitar playing at that, this album is definitely for you. On top of all of this, you have the vocals. Let me just say this, Megan's vocals are here to stay. Like, what a calling card of a record as far as she's concerned. It doesn't matter if we're looking at clean vocals, it doesn't matter if we're looking at harsh vocals. She nailed them both to perfection. It's really hard to pick which one you prefer, because depending on where you are within the track, depending on where you are within the album, depending on the lyrical content, on what the song calls for, she picks the one that best suits the track, and she nails it. I love her voice, I love the emotion, I love the anger, I love the pain, I love the suffering, I love everything that she put me through throughout the experience of this album, just with her voice. What an instrument. I was blown away by the quality of her vocals and by what she was able to do with it on this album. Overall, I think I said it all. This is going to be one of the debut records of the year. I have zero doubts about it. This band, sky is the limit. The stratosphere, I don't think sky is even the limit. There's no limit for what these guys can do. If this is what you put together for a debut record, then you could really put together something incredible in the future as you gain more experience, as you understand perhaps behind the scenes some things that didn't go the way you wanted, and you can improve upon them on future albums. But I was blown away by the quality of this record. This is going to be definitely one of those albums as far as top debut records of the year that I'll be talking about. I love everything about it. I love the sound, the experience, the fluidity, how dynamic it is, the vocals, the lyrics, the lyrical content, the connection of all these elements. Just almost flawless album top to bottom. It's really hard to pick something that doesn't work or that didn't work well within this record, because everything had its place, had its time, and it really worked well as something that comes together with a bunch of different pieces moving. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Fake. Brutal track. The guitars really drive this song. The drums build the foundation. Once again, you see that happening throughout this album. The drums are really building the foundations, and then the guitars are driving on top of that, and then the vocals really smack you hard. This is a song where the vocals feel like they're in your face the whole time. They're really there, and they're brutal in the delivery and sometimes very aggressive in nature. But all three elements, drums, guitars, and vocals, really work well together in different lanes, creating different expectations for the listener, creating different perceptions for the listener, but at the same time coming together wonderfully well in order to create a very powerful track, a heavy track, a melodic track, a track that just really moves well, and a track that morphs almost at every single turn, both musically and vocally. It's just a heavy, heavy, heavy song. Next, Aurora, a more melancholic soundscape. As it starts, the clean vocals really add to that melancholic soundscape, but there's still energy in the air. You can still feel like there's something brewing, something is going to happen. There's a sense of darkness. All of these pieces are coming together. Then once the harsh vocals hit, you see the progression in the song. You see the change in atmosphere. You see the change in the mood. It sheds a little bit of that melancholic skin, becomes a little bit more darker, a little bit more driven, perhaps a little bit more direct of a track that really takes you where it needs to go. Has a great guitar solo. I really enjoy the guitar solo because it broke this song. It broke the dynamic of the track, but it resetted the track at the same time. And then the song finishes it nearly as it started, so it almost goes full circle. Then you have the last song on the album, Lazarus, a song that has a very similar structure to Aurora. The way it starts, it's the way it finishes. On this one, it's a little bit more clear cut, but I really like the way it ended because it gives a sense of finality to the album. It starts off mellow, it finishes mellow. In between, you have a very heavy juggernaut of a track that just really comes at you with a lot of intent, with a lot of aggression, with a lot of direction. Perhaps one of the most direct, unfiltered songs of the album. I really didn't feel like this is a song that gives you a lot of ebbs and flows. It's just more linear in its approach, and the approach is aggression, heaviness, and intensity from top all the way to the bottom. Just love the strength that they close the album off. These two songs are the last two songs on the record and two of the heaviest songs. Perhaps Lazarus heavier from a musical sense, Aurora perhaps heavier from an emotional sense, but heavy nevertheless. This is it. Vexed with Culling Culture, out May 21st on Napalm Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.